Hey, my relatives. This is Mark Charles. It is Monday, November 1st, and I'm sitting down a little bit late in the day for my second cup of coffee, but I've been nursing it for the past couple hours. But I wanted to jump on. I don't have a lot of time today, but there's a few things I wanted to make sure I highlighted. So feel free to grab a cup of coffee, and I welcome you to sit down and join me for a few minutes. I want to talk about a few things as we go into um, Native American Heritage Month for 2021. Before I begin, as I always do, I want to start by acknowledging that I'm speaking to you from what's now known as the lands of what's now known as Washington D.C., and that these are the lands of the Piscataway. You, if you've been following my live streams, you know that I frequently, always honor the people whose land I'm on, and I acknowledge the host people of these lands. And I think this is a very important thing that we do, because so much of our history of our nation says that there was no one here prior to Columbus discovering these lands, and these lands were empty. And so doing land acknowledgement and honoring the people who were here first is very important, because it helps to counter the narrative that our history classes and our books and even our government continues to perpetuate, which is that these lands were discovered. And so even for doing that, I want to share with you a link that I use very frequently. For those of you who have followed me for a while, you've seen this link before. But one of the links that I use, especially when I travel to understand whose land I'm on, is this one that's native-land.ca. It's a very good link. It lets you put in an address, a city, or a state, anywhere within knowing more around the globe. And it will give you the history of that land, the languages spoken, the treaties signed, and the people who were indigenous to those lands. This isn't the only resource, but it is one of the best ones I found. It's not always absolutely correct, but it's a great place to begin your research. And so if you are interested in whose land you're on, no matter where you live around the US, or if you're traveling and you want to know whose land you're going to, this is a good resource to begin that research. And I encourage you to do that, not only this month during Native American Heritage Month, but I encourage you to do that frequently, all the time, whenever you travel, right? Just like you will make reservations for a hotel and you'll plan how you'll get from the airport to wherever you're going. Find out whose land you're going to. Learn about the people who were on those lands originally, and find a way that you can honor or acknowledge some of that history to those lands prior to getting there and even after you arrive. There's a few things that are going on this month, but one of the things I wanted to highlight for you today was some stuff that is actually on Google. So if you use Google search like I do, you probably rarely ever go to the Google search page, right? We just type a search term into our Chrome browsers, or we right click and go to search this term, and our default browser, our default Google search engine will bring up the search terms. And we rarely, at least I rarely, go to the Google homepage, google.com. But this morning, my wife Rachel, who is on Google's homepage, she found that they had a new doodle. They have a doodle on their page frequently, and they had a new doodle this morning on their front page. I gave you the link to google.com just in case you want to do it. And it is highlighting the Zuni Pueblo, and especially one of their two spirited weavers, whose name was Wiwa. And not only do I encourage you to go to that doodle, you have to go to actually go to the home page, and you have to click on the doodle on the front page. I think it's only for today it's going to be on there. And it will bring you to an interactive game that you can actually play, that a Zuni members of the Zuni Pueblo helped design this interactive game. They did some of the artwork for it, and it's been coming out. It's very much developed with partnership of the Zuni Pueblo and of the Zuni people. And I encourage you to go there, to click on the doodle, and to bring up that game today, and just look at the interactive weaving that you can do there, as well as to hear some of the music and some of the singing of the Zuni people. Also, This is linked on the front page of Google as well. There is a behind the scenes of the doodle, and it's about celebrating the late Wiwa, and that is the two-spirited weaver, who the game was developed, or the profile was developed after him, her, and it gives a great understanding, a more in-depth understanding of both what they're trying to do with this interactive thing and the partnership they had with the Zuni Pueblo, and even some of the culture and context and history of the Zuni people. So I put that link into the comments as well, and you can go to that link. That's actually put up right on YouTube. It's a YouTube video, but it's also linked from the front page of Google, at least for today, which is Monday, November 1st. And then for those of you who are interested in learning just more about Wiwa and sort of his or her legacy as a weaver, and even importance within the Zuni Pueblo and the Zuni history and culture, there's a book that was published, and I'm sharing a link to that book. There's, as always, there's a lot of places you can buy books, and of course Amazon is the cheapest and the most convenient and the most popular place to buy books. But I linked it, the link I just gave you is from the Indian Pueblo store, which I believe is at the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center in Albuquerque. And again, just buying from local booksellers or even buying from the authors directly is a great way to support authors and to support local bookstores, right? By default, Amazon's going to get their sales, but so it's good to point people to other places as well. So there is a book about Wiwa, and I gave a link to it in the Indian Pueblo store that you can definitely click on and link to if you'd like to learn more about sort of their story and even some of the weaving that they've done. So those, I want to share a few things about that this morning. And I'm sure throughout this entire month, this is Native American Heritage Month, there will be a lot of things coming out, a lot of things going on online, a lot of speeches and seminars and webinars happening. There's no way I can track everything that's going to happen, but every day or at least several times a week, I'm going to try to share some of those things and say a little bit more about them, even on this live stream. Right after I saw the doodle on Google this morning, I called a good friend of mine who is from the Zuni Pueblo, and I was able to speak with her about not only I want to know, how careful and how much a part was their culture and was their people a part of making that doodle as well as the video. But I just wanted to hear and make sure that what it was as authentic as possible. And she spoke very highly of what Google did and what was put out there, and said it was done really much in depth in partnership with the Pueblo, with the museum on the Pueblo, and with local artists and people within the Pueblo. So that made me feel better to even just share it with you this morning or this afternoon. So I wanted to let you know that. And I'm actually hoping to, this month, throughout the month, I want to have several of my cups of coffee where I will invite other Native American authors, as well as artists and leaders and people doing work within our community, onto my second cups of coffee to join the discussion and to share things about what they're doing and what's going on in their corners of Indian country. So I'm really hoping that this month we'll be able to get a lot of good discussion going on my YouTube channel and on my Facebook page about Native American Heritage Month, as well as Native American history. I'm also going to be doing a lot this month, not only just to promote my book, but to really continue to lay out the history and to bring the discussion of the doctrine of discovery much more to the forefront. It's such an important piece of our nation's history that has literally been buried. And I want to do what I can to try and help bring this story and this history much more to the forefront and put it into the center of what we're talking about as a nation. And so I'm going to share a few links here now. Obviously, the first thing I'm going to share is a link where not only can you, it's the page on my website where you can purchase signed copies of the book, but we're developing that page and making it giving it even more resources. So not only can you buy a signed copy of the book on that page, but you can also get the links to the 14-part video series I did of the study of the book. And I've also placed a few podcast links on there that you can access and listen to regarding Unsettling Truths and the Doctrine of Discovery. And we're going to continue developing that page throughout this month. And so even if you bought the book or you don't want to buy the book right now, I still encourage you to go to that page, and there's going to be a growing list of resources on that page that we can use to teach this history and to get people to learn more about that. I'm also going to be talking a lot this month, and I shared this the other day, about, as we're now in the month of Thanksgiving, and we're going to be talking more and more about Thanksgiving as we get closer to the 4th week of November. And I'm going to be sharing a lot about my perspective, and not only kind of the conclusion I came to about 3 or 4 years ago, where I said I can no longer even try to reclaim this day of Thanksgiving. I just need to give it up. It's now a day of mourning for our people. And I shared a link in there that I published, op-ed I published on Indian Z and on my blog a few years ago, really detailing some of that and what I've come to. But I'm going to be talking more about that journey I've gone through over the past decade, of how I've attempted to try and reframe and reclaim the true spirit of Thanksgiving. And it was 3 years ago when I saw how Abraham Lincoln used Thanksgiving to celebrate genocide, where I just concluded, yeah, I can't reclaim this. And so that article I shared is part of the conclusion of that, but I'm going to be talking more this month about the journey that I went on to kind of get there. So, and then the last thing I want to share, this just was posted a few days ago, and it's actually a sermon I preached about 10 days ago, maybe 8 days ago, at a church in New York City called Forefront Church. And it's a passage I've been preaching on fairly regularly, about coming from Acts chapter 10, and about building a radically diverse and inclusive church. I've talked about it on my second cup of coffee before. I've written about it a little bit. This sermon was probably the most succinct sermon I've ever given on it. And I was able to really kind of whittle it down to some of the most essential points. It's about 27 minutes long. It's from Acts chapter 10, the bulk of the passage. And so I'm going to share that with you now in the comments. And if you'd like to watch that there, that's going to be there. I'm sorry that this is such a short second cup of coffee. I actually have a lot of meetings that I'm kind of jumping in and out of throughout the day, and I have to do a podcast in less than a half an hour that we're going to be filming, so I need to get on that. But I really wanted to jump on and talk about this doodle and about the Zuni people, and just to kind of introduce that we're going into Native American Heritage Month, and kind of highlight some of the things I'm hoping to do throughout the month. So thank you for joining me this morning or this afternoon for a few minutes. I hope you have a great day. If you didn't notice, I did actually get out this morning, and I went down to the river and watched the sunrise, and I was able to film it and live stream it, put it on my social media. I literally haven't been there in over 2 weeks, in part because it's been much more cloudy and rainy these past 2 weeks, but also because of my daughter's school schedule. I haven't been able to get down there and get them to school on time at the same time. And so this morning, my wife was able to help me coordinate some stuff. And so I was able to take some time to get down to the river and watch the sunrise, and I filmed it, and it was absolutely gorgeous. So that's on my Twitter account. It's on my YouTube channel. It's also on my Facebook page and on my Instagram channel. So if you have a chance, you can watch it there. But it was a really beautiful way to kind of start the week, and to start with that reminder of Creator has placed us in this place of beauty. Creator is the one who is in control, and we need to make sure that we are able to steward the creation that we live in well. So yeah, those are some things I wanted to share and talk about. I hope that all of you have a good day. Someone asked what podcast I'm going to be on. Let me tell you right now. I can actually look it up. It's called the Just Podcast. And Jess Everhart and Blue, who is does some work in the social justice area. It's his podcast. I don't know when it's going to come out or not. It's not going live today, I don't believe, but I think we're recording it and it's going to be posted later. And once we get where it will be posted, we'll definitely put that onto my social media so you can get a link to it. And we'll be talking about the book and even about some of my story in the podcast. I'm looking forward to the conversation. But yeah, thanks for joining me, everybody. I hope that you have a great day. I hope your second cup of coffee is as good as mine is. And I'm looking forward to the month and the many conversations we're going to be able to have. So I can't have my relatives go on that and walk in beauty, and we learn how to walk in beauty together.